I'm going to show you the best deck for every arena in Clash Royale. This is not your average best decks video. I'm not just going to say Arena 18 use this deck, here's a game that doesn't help you at all. Arena 20 use this deck. One, it doesn't make sense, and two, what if the meta changes and it's just not helpful anymore? This is going to be a farming guide to help you no matter where you are on ladder. There's going to be a decision you have to make before we start though. What kind of Clash Royale do you want to play? You have to pick your archetype in Clash Royale. What do you want to play? There are 5 main archetypes slash play styles. We'll start with Beatdown, which is your Golem decks, your Lava decks, your Goblin Giant decks, etc. You're going to build a big push, heavy elixir deck, steamroll the opponents. It is the best beginner-friendly option, but the hard matchups are going to be extremely hard. So, you know, if you're willing to just, hey, this matchup sucks, this is an instant loss, then that is a negative you're gonna have to take. But at the same time, these are the easiest decks to start playing. We've got Cycle, which, you know, everybody knows, your Hog Rider Cycle, your Expo Cycle, etc. These are going to be decks that are very good no matter where you are, and the more time and effort you put into them, the more success you're going to have. You're going to be able to outplay all types of matchups, but it is harder to get into and start learning. We've got Bait, which is going to be a bit of a more niche selection. There's less decks that go into bait, but we got Log Bait, Mega Knight Bait, Mortar Bait. These are going to be fun decks. They're kind of hybrid between Bridge Spam and Cycle, and they're still going to be very effective and very fun as well. Bridge Spam is the next archetype, and this one's kind of interesting because although it is, you know, it's pretty solid in the meta, there's not too many different variations of it. It's mainly P.E.K.K.A this, P.E.K.K.A that. Maybe there's 6 different types of P.E.K.K.A decks, but it's mainly just P.E.K.K.A and a few other, maybe Mega Knights. But this is a more niche thing. If you like playing fast and aggressive, then you should pick a Bridge Spam. We can go into very specific archetypes, but the last main group is Control. This is going to be your Graveyard, your Tornado decks. I'll also group like Lumberloon, Royal Giant in there because I don't really know what to call Royal Giant, but this is your type of deck where you play slow. You have 5-minute games, you know, Minor Poison, you could call that Cycle as well, but I'm grouping it under Control just because these are, you know, if you don't mind taking 5 minutes and spending the entire game playing defense and getting chip damage and playing, you know, rock solid defense, if that's what you like, then play Control. It's not the most popular option, but it is very, very strong. Play some games and classic challenges with different types of decks and just kind of experiment, see what playstyle you like before committing to something, because it's going to take you months to level up a deck, and the last thing you want to do is figure out, you know what, I hate the way I'm playing and I'm halfway to level 15, so you know what, I'm just going to keep going. After all, it is a game, so you want to have as much fun as possible while playing the game, which is why it's important you kind of test to find out which deck and playstyle you like the most. You have by now, hopefully you've tested what playstyle you like the best, and so based on whatever playstyle you like the best, I'm going to cover them one by one and show you the different deck variations based on how far you are in the arena. We're going to start with Beatdown. Now obviously your Arena 1 giant deck doesn't really count. Once you get to Arena 7, oh geez, once you get to Arena 7, I understand that most of you are way past this, but this is kind of the, you know, I just want to be inclusive, you know? We're going to unlock the Dark Prince and the Prince, which is going to allow you to go one of 2 directions. You could start playing Giant Double Prince or Goblin Giant Double Prince, as the Goblin Giant will unlock very shortly in the Jungle Arena. You can pick. Now, I will show you the specific decks in a second, but doesn't really matter too much. You could basically run the same type of deck all the way up to like 5,000 trophies before you have to start worrying about meta decks. You can run a giant. Also assume that this is a Goblin Giant. You can run either or. You get the arrows, fireball, zap. You can run 3 spells. 3 spells are very effective. I would also, you know, as you get later on, there will be a rage up here soon. You'll get a rage. You can replace this maybe the arrows with the rage. I'm not sure. I think it's, you know, because everybody uses Void now, and God, half the players have never seen a Void in their life. So you can run the old-fashioned Fireball, Zap, Arrows, or you can run Rage instead of Zap, or Rage instead of Arrows, and you want the Mega Minion. Mega Minion unlocks best support troop. I would definitely play it at an early arena. You've also got your ground cards, which are going to be the Prince and the Dark Prince, obviously. And now we only have one more slot to fill up, which is usually a Miner or a Spirit. in top ladder, but you can substitute literally anything here. I would go with maybe a extra air counter. If you don't like it, you can go archers, you can go minions, you can go musketeer, you can go spear goblins. This card slot until like arena 13 does not matter at all. So that's going to be your beatdown variant. You could sub this for a goblin giant as well. So as we scroll again, I'm gonna get carpal tunnel syndrome from this. No, God, no. Never, don't level up that card. Okay, so we're just talking about beatdown right now, and beatdown does not get very interesting. You can run Cannoneer. Honestly, I don't recommend it. Just stick to the basics. Beatdown gains nothing out of this. I guess if you're stuck in 2018 and you want to run the lightning, then don't do that. Just don't do that. You unlock the goblin giant. If you don't like the giant, you could start playing the goblin giant as well. And we unlock the bar barrel, which is useless as well. I don't know why I brought that up. As we get to Hog Mountain, you can start playing Golem. Well, not really, but you could start leveling up the cards in Golem. I would still recommend playing your Goblin Giant Double Prince deck, but as we get to Golem, the cards you're going to be looking at for Golem, the reason I'm saying you could start upgrading it is because you don't get most of the cards that are good in Golem till way later on. That's the big dilemma here, is that you're going to have to level up cards in advance, and that doesn't really work like that because you can't run Golem effectively without, let's say, the Night Witch, and Lord knows where the Night Witch is. She's in God knows what arena. You need the Lumberjack, you need the Cannon Carts, and you need the NATO. It's like you can't run a proper good Golem deck until you get to that arena, but if you do want to level up Golem, keep your eye on a few cards that you already have unlocked. For example, the Baby Dragon, the Wizard. It doesn't really fit in Golem, but it does fit in Giant, by the way. I forgot to mention the Wizard is probably the best evolution you can play as a new player. So try and get the Wizard. I would recommend it. If you're wanting to play Beatdown, Goblin Giant, doesn't matter, Giant, those are really good options for the Wizard evolution. Now, you can also start upgrading a Tombstone, although that doesn't matter too much. Skeleton Dragons are a great option if you want to become a horrible Golem player, but there's not too much. Electro Valley is where you start to get your hands on the legendaries. Now, for Beatdown, this is not too exciting. Unfortunately, you guys kind of have to do literally nothing with this. So you don't unlock literally a single card that benefits a Beatdown deck, but up in Spooky Town, we have the Electro Dragon. So if you want to go the Golem route, start leveling up this E-Drag as soon as you get it. You can also level up the Phoenix for Golem and nothing else. Actually, it's decent in Goblin Giant. So if you don't have the Wizard evolution or you don't want to play the Wizard evolution, Phoenix will also fill that support role that it can also replace Mega Minion that I showed you in that Giant deck. As we scroll up more, we have the Lava Hound. If you want to become a beautiful, blessed Lava Hound player, you already have all the cards you need. So we're going to go back to a Lava Hound deck. Let me just add this deck. Actually, I don't really need to add it. You've got Tombstone, Barbarians, or Valkyrie. You can play Skeleton Dragon. You can play either or, whatever evolution you want to get is preference. Either one works all the way up to 9,000 trophies. So let me just make it. I'll just make the deck to make things as easy as possible for you. We're going to have all the cards for Lava Hound way before we get to Lava Hound, which is why that's one of the better options. So if you want to kind of stall for time and upgrade a Lava Hound deck, which I would recommend because it's very, very easy to climb the ranks with Lava Hound, you get all of these cards way before. You get Fireball, Valk, or Barbs, remember that. You have Mega Minion, Skeleton Dragons. The Tombstone is around here somewhere. Yes, Tombstone. We've got, I'm forgetting what's in my main deck. Zap, Fireball, and then, how many do I have? Okay. My apologies. We got the Lava and the Balloon. So, you already have the entire deck unlocked way before you get to Lava Hound, which is why it's a good option to think about pre-upgrading these cards in particular. Also remember the Barbs. You could play the Barbs instead. Other than that, there's not really any substitution. If you really find yourself struggling, arrows instead of Zap works, but I wouldn't go down that road. So that's what you get at 4,000 trophies. You've sort of got 3 different beatdown decks that you can play that are viable, and Golem doesn't really get any love until the Night Witch gets unlocked at Arena 4600. And here, you could start trying to build a Golem deck or a Lumberjack deck, but I just wouldn't recommend it. I honestly, you won't be able to build a Golem deck that works until 4600. You still don't have your E-Drag or your NATO or your Cannon card. You have to get to 5,000 trophies before you can even think of playing a good Golem deck. So I just don't recommend it. Beatdown will be completed unless you're, you know, for some reason you just have a Golem kink and you really want to play Golem. You are going to have your full beatdown options by 4200. So you can climb with Giant, Goblin Giant, Lava, I've already showed you. And those are your main go-to decks as far as, God, Astaghfirullah, not 2.6 Hog Cycle. You can play this deck right here, which is very good. Phoenix as well, if you want to unlock the Phoenix. If you take the beatdown route, that is the path you should take. And those decks will help. No, we are not going into a battle. Those decks will help you all the way up until these arenas. It doesn't, just because you unlock new cards doesn't make the deck start getting worse. Those are going to be your decks that will carry you all the way through the trophy road. If you picked Cycle, your entire deck will be usable by the time you get to the Hog Rider, which is why Cycle is probably the best option to pick up if you're a new player. If you're not, that's okay. It doesn't really matter. You don't have to worry about this. Although I would still recommend playing Hog Cycle if you want to play a Cycle deck, because it's really good. You will have more options the later arenas. This is going to be way more in depth than the beatdown. So you unlock the Hog Rider at Arena 5 and you should start playing with this deck. This should be your deck. I'm not even going to get into evolutions. I would just try and upgrade the skeletons if you want to play Cycle, but we don't have to. Evolutions, oh my god, we're at 1,000 trophies. Slow down, man. In Arena 6, you unlock nothing of use. Keep an eye on the guards. Those will be maybe useful because guards are really good in the meta. Don't worry about it. Skeleton army, don't touch it. It looks good. It's not good, trust me. Arena 7, we unlock nothing that is useful to Cycle because every card is above 5 elixir. Arena 8, this is your best friend. Get to know him. This is your best friend. Also, if you want to become a 2.6 player, replace the Knight with the Ice Golem and replace the E-Spirit with the Ice Spirit. That will be your go-to. Now, none of these other things benefit Cycle unless you want to start playing Balloon Cycle, which you'll have to keep an eye on for later. Arena 9, you unlock the Poison, which will be useful if you ever want to play Minor Poison, which will be covered under control, so just ignore this. Arena 10, Tesla, best friend. If you want to start playing good, solid Cycle decks, your main building should be Tesla. If you want to play 2.6 Hog Cycle, you will replace nothing. You will still play Cannon like a bozo. If you want to play Hog EQ, which we will get to in just a second, you can play the Tesla because it's the best building in the game, and you should definitely play it. None of these other cards are meaningful. Also, Expo. If you want to play I said not meaningful, and we left out the whole archetype. Expo. If you want to become an Expo player instead of dirty Hog player, then what you can do is have most of your cards already unlocked. You won't have the log, which is kind of annoying, but we can play Zap instead, or Snowball, because it's just a substitution card until you get to log. So you're going to have most of the Expo deck already unlocked, which is beautiful. That's kind of my favorite part about Cycle, is you have two massive Cycle decks already leveled up by the time you get to 3,000 trophies. So we're going to have the Electro Spirit is the best spirit. You can use Ice Spirit too. I think E-Spirit is the better one for Expo. And so as you can see, we're going to have the Tesla recently unlocked, and you have the Expo as well. And so you already have the Knight, and he's up here for some reason. You already have the Knight. What is the last card off the top of my head? Skeletons. You have the entire deck upgraded already. Not upgraded, but unlocked already, which is beautiful. If you want to play Expo, keep in mind this will become a log as soon as we unlock the log. You have the entire Expo Cycle deck ready. This is a rough look at your Minor Poison deck. I definitely would not recommend going after Minor Poison. Take this with a grain of salt. This deck will be effective to a degree. Nobody plays Minor Poison anymore except for Muhammad Light, so I'm not going to cover it anymore. I wouldn't go after Minor Poison no matter what arena you're in. Once you get to Spooky Town at 3,800 trophies, you're going to unlock the Firecracker, the Earthquake, and you're basically going to be set with your Hog EQ deck, which is going to look very similar to your, where is it? Oh god, I got rid of it, didn't I? Oh no. Your Hog deck, let me build it. Ta-da! You've got your Hog EQ deck, which is also very strong, an alternative to 2.6. And you can run the Mighty Miner if you ever get so lucky as to level up a Mighty Miner instead of the Knight, but the Knight works perfectly fine. You will usually end up running, I feel like, the Firecracker evolution. I don't even think you're going to get to evolution. Firecracker evolution, great. Tesla evolution, great. These are going to be your staple decks in cycle. So we can keep going up the arenas, but it does not matter too much. Once you get here, you're going to have 3 big cycle decks to choose from. I'm not counting Minor Poison. I'm counting 2.6 and Hog Earthquake as 2 separate decks. You can use the Royal Hoggies with a grain of salt because they rely on you having the Archer Queen, which does, let's just say, doesn't come around until ever. So those are going to be your cycle decks. I'm not covering each arena individually because those cycle decks will work in literally every arena as soon as you unlock them. That's kind of why I stop after, you know, if you watch the beatdown segment, you would see that I stopped after like 3,000, 4,000 trophies. Or actually I stopped at 5,000 because of the NATO. You can use those decks all the way up the trophy road. Now, this are for your people who do want to play Royal Hogs. If you unlock the Archer Queen and you want to put her in a cycle deck, you can use the Royal Hoggies deck. I'll show you in just a second. I mentioned the Mighty Miner also substitutes for the Knight and that Hog EQ deck. As you can see, the Little Prince, we don't need to worry about that. You will have all your decks ready for climbing the entire arena. Now, Hoggies cycle will have a cannon instead of a Tesla, the Hoggies instead of the Hog Rider. The rest of the deck is literally like almost the exact same. You're going to have a Royal Delivery instead of a Knight though, and you're going to have a Queen instead of a Firecracker. That's going to be the deck. Let's say you want to play Bait. I love Bait. Riley's my favorite content creator. You're going to have a interesting set of options. Now, you're not going to be able to play a very good Bait deck until you get up to, well, most of you don't have this problem, but until you unlock the Princess up at, what is it, 4,000 trophies? Yeah. If you unlock the Princess, you can start playing Bait. The problem is every Bait deck that is good, you have to unlock either the Mega Knights, the Princess, or the Inferno Dragon. If you want to play Mega Knight Bait, you got to unlock both, or the Miner. You can't make a Bait deck until you get to 3,400 trophies. Most of you are probably already there, but let's go over the Bait decks. These are your 3 main Bait decks. I fast forwarded. You've got your Mega Knight Bait deck. This is going to be a deck that you do have to level up 3 legendaries for. So if you want to level up 3 legendaries free to play, go ahead, be my guest. I wouldn't recommend it, but this is kind of what you have to do. Now you can replace the Miner with the Goblin Drill. So if you're willing to level up 2 legendaries, you can replace the Miner with the Goblin Drill, and that will work in any arena. If you unlock the Skeleton King, you are in luck. You get to play the best deck in the game right now, September 12th, 2024. Maybe it won't be the best deck in the game later on, but it will be a very strong version that will carry you in trophy. Now, I would strongly recommend that you don't pick up these Bait decks unless you have patience, because if you face an Executioner Wizard 15 splash unit deck and you lose, you're probably, you know, just gonna have to take that because you're running Bait in mid ladder, which is, you know, you can do it, you can outplay them, but it's gonna be kind of rough and it won't be a free path to victory, but it will still be a very strong deck. You will get much better at the game playing this deck all the way to 9,000 trophies than something like Lava or Golem Beatdown. If you want to play the classic OG Riley deck, this is your go-to. Yeah, obviously the Evo Goblin Barrel has made the deck a little bit better, but as a whole, I would, if you want to have an easier time playing Clash Royale, I would not pick the Bait archetype to start leveling up, no matter where you are. I wouldn't. It can work if you put time into it, and they're all good decks, but I just wouldn't recommend playing it over something else where you could have a much easier time. If you do really like Bait and you want to play Bait, those are your 3 decks that work for Bait as soon as you unlock all the cards and will work on all of the rest of the arenas. If you want to play Bridge Spam, I would just strongly urge you to just not pick Bridge Spam. Please don't pick Bridge Spam. It's going to be a terrible process. One, it is very expensive. Obviously, you're going to start with your P.E.K.K.A. There are different variations, okay? There are different variations to P.E.K.K.A. that will work everywhere, but it really just, it's a mess. Let's sort by arena just to see how long it takes to get some of these cards. The old P.E.K.K.A. Bridge Spam deck is outdated, kind of, but you've got None of these cards that actually go in bridge spam. Wizard is your go-to for bridge spam right now. Let me show you exactly why this is probably something you shouldn't consider doing. You have the E-Wizard, the Ram Rider, the Royal Ghost, the Bandit, the Magic Archer, the Lumberjack in some decks, the Void, which is something you unlock way down the line, the Little Prince, the Mother Witch. Do you see something in common with all of the cards that work in bridge spam? Obviously the Battle Ram. Yeah. Unless you, I guess, have deep pockets, bridge spam is something to stay away from. Because there's really only P.E.K.K.A. There's not other viable bridge spam decks, at least right now and in the foreseeable future. The P.E.K.K.A. Wizard combo is good. You could substitute Ram Rider for Battle Ram, Electro Wizard for Magic Archer. Why would you do that? I don't know. You have a Zap in there too, but every bridge spam deck is going to take 4 or more legendaries, and that is just something that is probably not feasible to almost everybody. So if you do want to play bridge spam really bad, then I can give you the best bridge spam deck. Probably if you want to ask in the comments, but I'm not going to waste time going in depth onto it because I think it's something that you should absolutely stay away from no matter what arena you're in. Lastly, we will cover control, and I also just have a couple miscellaneous decks to sprinkle in, like Royal Giant. I had literally no idea where to put Royal Giant. Right now, Royal Giant is not in a very good spot, it looks like, because both the Mega Knight Evo Abomination being free to everybody and the P.E.K.K.A. evolution being completely game breaking, Royal Giant is just not really worth playing. You can start to level it up as soon as you unlock the Fisherman, because Royal Giant is not good without his friend, his best friend, the Fisherman. The problem with Royal Giant as well is that sometimes it's good with the Monk. God knows when you're going to get the Monk. You need the Fisherman, which is one of the last cards you unlock in the game. Fisherman. The rest of the deck is pretty simple. You're just going to have the Log. You're going to have stuff like the Royal Giant. And you're just going to shove miscellaneous cards in there. You can have Mother Witch. You can have Wizard. Wizard's really good. Skeletons, E-Spirit, Royal Giant, Fisherman, Log are the same in every Royal Giant deck. Those will be your go-to cards. You can also run the Phoenix. Literally every Royal Giant deck has the same 6 cards in it. Fisherman, Log, imagine there's a Royal Giant here. I'm probably going to put it in an editing process because I'm lazy. Phoenix, you've got the E-Spirit, which is for some reason a staple as well. You can run the Mother Witch instead if you have problems with it. But Royal Giant is another extremely expensive deck with 3 legendaries at least that I just wouldn't recommend going after. If you do want to, I wouldn't, but those are the 6 staple cards, and the rest you can just mess around with, skeletons or whatnot. Now, control, the actual control deck that will get you to 9,000 trophies very, I don't want to say easily, but it is kind of easy, is Graveyard. Now, you're going to have a rather expensive deck once again, but it will only take 2 legendaries. So the Ice Wizard, which you can keep at level 14 or level 13 for a while, and the Graveyard are going to be your legendaries, you know, because for Graveyard, you do need to have a Graveyard leveled up, although you can also keep it 1 level under leveled, because I wouldn't recommend it, but just try and level up your Graveyard as soon as possible. You're going to have a Tornado. You're going to have usually, I wouldn't think, some people run the Little Prince. You don't need to do that. Usually it's the problem with Splash Yard, which is this particular deck I'm going over, is it got outdated because it doesn't have the best 2 evolutions. So people started playing the Bomber instead of the Bar Barrel. I'm going to quickly fill out the rest of the deck. This is your, you know, rather, I would say honestly cheap. 2 legendaries is just something you have to accept, I think. It will be a steeper cost, but this deck, as soon as you unlock the Graveyard and you can start playing this deck, the Graveyard and the Ice Wizard, he's really good after his buff, but you don't need to unlock him immediately to play this deck. You can run like a E-Wizard, you can run a Wizard, you can run a Musk. I would highly recommend switch to Ice Wizard as soon as you can. Is literally good in every single arena. I kid you not. It will dominate in every arena because the playstyle of being slow, being just a pest on defense, not letting any push through you, is something that is very good. And also, to cap things off, you can play the wretched Lumberloon deck, which will be complete as soon as you unlock both the NATO and the E-Drag over at 3,000 trophies. So you're going to unlock this. You're going to unlock the free. You have to use the free spell. If you want to play Lumberloon, you just got to be a pest and play the free spell. You you get your Lumberloon. Oh, I did not mean to put that in there. You got your baby dragon. You've got, you can run the wizard, which is kind of the biggest benefit to playing Lumberloon, is that the wizard makes this really easy. You've got your lumberjack. Obviously, you need him as well to run Lumberloon, but as soon as you get your lumberjack, you can start playing Lumberloon versions. And this is going to be like a go-to version with the freeze as well. You can run the freeze. If you think this is too expensive, you can swap out the bowler as well. You can play the knight instead. This is going to be your number one Lumberloon deck. If you feel like being an absolute pest, don't forget the freeze. You can, and you can, you'll probably lose to some decks with 2 buildings or a bunch of air counters, but it's still a pretty solid deck. So I tried to do something new with the best decks for every arena. I don't know if it's going to be effective. I did what I thought would be best if I was trying to learn the game and I wanted a deck for each arena. At a certain point, as soon as you unlock enough cards for a deck, you can play that deck for the next 5,000 trophies. You don't need to switch it up when you hit boot camp or anything like that. So I hope this video did help you. Let me know if it was helpful in the comments, because I felt like it would be helpful to me if I was a player that was trying to grind through the trophy road. Hopefully it was helpful to you. Take care. Let me know any questions you have, and if this video did help you, leave a like down below, and I don't know, drop a comment about what deck you want to play. Have a good night or day or whatever.